Hi, and welcome to a sound clip from our Bible study discussions every Tuesday night from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. in Pakalani. Please enjoy.
Sure, thanks, Anesu. Well, we are a small group, which is nice.
Yes, we can be.
So I will try to be brief and to the point, and I hope that out of what I share or whatever, we can talk a little bit, because I believe we are all sitting in the same boat, and it's good to know about certain things, because it explains areas in our lives and helps us to maybe redirect certain directions that we're walking. So I want to share with you today or maybe under the topic what or who is guiding us. Mm-hmm. So in Jeremiah is a very awesome word written to give us a truth that I can, you can see it spiritually in other places of the Bible, but it's not spelled out the way that Jeremiah is spelling it out, and that is in Jeremiah 10:23. Mm-hmm. Jeremiah 10:23. O Lord, I know that the way of man is not in himself. It is not in man that walketh to direct his steps. Lord, I know that the way of man is not in himself. It is not in man that walketh to direct his steps. Jeremiah is opening up a very deep spiritual truth. Because we have grown up, going through the systems, school system and family and, environment and media and so on. And we're getting bombarded by influences that want to tell us that we are in control of ourselves and we decide which steps we should take and which ways we should walk. We are the how do they put it? We fabricate our own life, okay? And that's why they say or whatever, you never stop learning, Never stop learning, because you need to go forward. And once you stop learning or whatever, you're going back and so on and so forth. But Jeremiah is telling us that actually man is not in control of which direction we go. How can he say that? Then what is in control? Or what is guiding us? Because we think that we're coming up with ideas. We think we have goals or we have directions that we want to achieve. And that's why, I asked Anesu that question, who we admire. Who are our examples that are guiding us? And because I very strongly believe nobody is original. I know maybe some they feel offended by this, because they say, no, yes, I am original. Hey, I make my own clothes, or I design this and that. But if you look back into your life and in your education and in how you were formed or how you were taught, it's almost like we are copying something. We're copying something that either somebody has already done, and we maybe want to refine it and we say this is original, or we come up with something that we say, okay, this has not been there before, but actually ultimately it was already there. Solomon himself, he said that there is nothing new in the world. Everything that was will be again, and everything that is was already. We're almost like just on a recycling modes through our generations. That's what I believe. We are not the highest culture or the most advanced civilization in mankind, but the world is telling us that's what we are. Everybody in the past, they were in the Stone Age. They didn't know They didn't really know the much what we know here today. And with digging deeper and deeper into the earth, they're finding more and more mind-puzzling things which they cannot explain. They don't know how they made it, because we cannot make them today. And it baffles them. And if Solomon is really correct, then, which I believe he is, then we are just going through the same cycles as many generations before us. And there's another, so what is influencing us? And if we especially look in the New Testament, we find that there are many spiritual inputs about our life, or especially our spiritual life. It's not so much about the physical, but it's about the spiritual. People who think they have invented something new or whatever. It's very interesting. They have all the same stories. Be it Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla. I don't know if you know that guy. Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, and those characters who started something new or seemingly new direction, and they all have the same answer when they were asked, how did you come up with that idea? Or how were you guided into that direction? And all of them have the same story. And all of them tell the story that in one way or one fashion, they had an encounter with something that talked to them and that showed them certain things. With us, actually, and they were saying they were inspired, hey? Nikola Tesla, for example, he openly says or whatever that he was talking to an entity from Mars that showed him the blueprints of the machines and the physical properties of, he came up with AC, electricity and so on, with the ether and tapping into the electricity that is around us. And he built machines. And he says that he saw the blueprints of these machines and he was copying them. Steve Jobs, he says that he was on a yoga exercise. He was inspired. He saw things, and that is how he designed or whatever his Apple and his operating systems and how it works so different than anybody else. Do you know, we, mankind, we are often inspired from something that we see. And from what we see, we're trying to copy or come up maybe a better way to do certain things. Do you know that word inspired comes from in spirit, meaning that you have a spiritual encounter, basically, that shows you things or that talks to you. That's what people say they were inspired to write that song. Something that they saw, something that they felt, and often it is with something that has to do with the spiritual realm. Now, a second verse that tells us what is actually that spiritual realm is in Ephesians 6, where Paul talks about the armor of God, and there he says in Ephesians 6 verse 12, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." He says what we're fighting or what influences us, a force or a spiritual power that has contact to us in one way or the other, is the spiritual realm. And he calls that principalities, powers, rulers of the darkness of this world, and wickedness in high places. About spiritual entities that have influences on mankind. We think we come up with an idea, but really the idea was given through something or somebody, right? I mean, if we look, as you know, I think this is especially so profound in technology. Something directs mankind to come up with technology, not to further or to enrich mankind, but actually to destroy mankind, to control mankind, not for freedom, but actually for bondage. You know, your cell phone, eh? We love our cell phones, but in one way or the other, it's bondage. And if you don't believe it, then put your phone away for 2 days. Do not touch it. You're tinkling because you think you are missing out on some news, on communication. You feel left out. All the weapons and so on. Anyways, I mean that is not a question there. But you know, one for example, another big control thing, which is spiritual too, is actually medication. Do you know? In the scriptures it talks about of witchcraft. I mean, especially here in Botswana, I think we're all familiar with certain witchcraft. Do you know what the word witchcraft in Greek is? Pharma. That is where the medication, with the medical industry or whatever has that word pharmacy. It is a way also to control. Are there good things done with? Sure they are. But very often that medication or whatever makes you addicted or has other side effects purposely, so you take more from the other point so that they get rich and rich and rich. So when we look at the system or the life around us, we think we are in control and we are guiding our own step, but in reality, our steps are guided. And especially these days with media and with news and media, with propaganda, the way you look or you think at certain areas of life is not your free choice. It is actually, you are bombarded with it. And because they know psychology, they know how the psyche of man works, they can steer. That is on the physical one, but Paul specifically said that we are the force that is behind all this. It's not the person, but it's actually something that influences that person to do what that person does. Even when somebody sins against us or hurts us, for example. That is why Jesus said when he was on the cross, he said, Father, forgive them, they do not know what they are doing. There is a principality, a power that came over them. They think they are doing the right thing, but they are not doing the right thing. They are guided. And I think it is so important, or at least for me, it is so important to know that, because we are exposed to many, many influences, especially these days. It's never been so easy to influence mankind. When I was small or whatever, we had still black and white TV. There was the vinyl records and the little cassette records or whatever. There was nothing digital. There was no phone. It was all the dial-up, one phone or whatever in the house, and we were quite protected in that way. But these days, the influences are all around us, and it is it is not easy to find a way or to quieten down some of those influences. And that's why I really like that scripture there from Jeremiah, that he reminds us we are not guiding our steps. And in the New Testament, or God tells us there are only two influences that we are guided by. Either we are guided by the Spirit of life, by the Holy Spirit, when Jesus came back, or we are guided by, he calls it the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that rules in this world, or that rules over the people, or of the disobedient ones. These influences rule over them without they even knowing what they are doing. So the only way for me, or whatever, is the only way to get out of this is actually only through Christ and through that Spirit. You know, there's a psalm that said, you know, the steps of a righteous man are guided by the Lord. We don't guide it; they are guided. But for the unbelievers, their steps are guided by the Spirit that reigns here over this world, okay, which is Lucifer. Or, I don't know if you can remember, that dragon from Revelation that was cast down. The influences that we can't see, but nevertheless they are around us, and we hear them all the time. You know, and the only way they can interact with us, we can interact with each other or whatever physically, and by speaking, by our senses that God has created us with. The spiritual realm, we do not sense it that way. They speak. Their only way to interfere with this realm or this reality is through our thoughts. The thoughts is the communication platform for spirits, or for those influences. You know, a good way to understand a spirit is a motivation, something that drives you, in the good or in the bad. For example, the spirit of anger, it motivates you not to do good, but it motivates you actually to fight against the other person with words or with deed. And you are engulfed in the thoughts and in the memories what that person has ever done to you. Those are spiritual influences. That's why Paul says there that our weapons are not carnal, but they're spiritual, in pulling down strongholds or imaginations that want to exalt themselves. And he says that with these spiritual weapons, which is Christ, we are taking captive every thought under the obedience of Christ. And that should show us that the thoughts that we think are not ours. They don't come from within, they come from without. And they want to get in, but they cannot force us. It's like a table. Our mind is like a table, and the thoughts are people that are coming and sitting down around the table. And in what we are letting into our mind, into entertaining them or talking to them. I bet you had some instances where in the evening, when you had a stressful day and you had a lot of maybe adversities or people that were, there were some stress factors, and you were going in your head, rewinding, you were talking, but not actually to yourself. It was like there was somebody else, and you were reasoning, and you were coming up with whole conversations. Those are the spiritual influences that we are warring with. And if we don't know that, then we think, I have all these evil thoughts or whatever, I'm still evil. No. they are trying to get in, and you can stand against them. You do not have to entertain. You don't have to entertain them. Paul says, the devil comes as a roaring lion, trying to devour somebody. But he says, to him, you resist. You stand and you resist strong in faith, and he will flee. He can't force you. One really good example was the garden. The serpent talked to Eve. The serpent did not force Eve to take that fruit. He didn't. It was her own choice. And after she listened to him, it was in a total different ways. It was like her eyes were open and she had knowledge of something that she didn't see before. And when she looked at it, it changed everything, her whole perspective. It looked good it made sense, it looked good for food, it was beautiful, and it would make one wise, and she took it. They cannot force us. We are the gatekeepers. We are the ones who entertain those spirits, these spiritual influences, these motivations. A good question is, what makes us do what we do? What makes us motivate to do what we do? I don't know if anybody is doing sports, but what motivates you to get up at 4 a.m. or whatever and do for 2 hours a workout? There's something that motivates, eh? It's spiritual. But even doing nothing is a motivation. Do you know that? What motivates you to do nothing? Whom are we entertaining of just being idle, feeling depressed, soaking in ourselves? Because we are starting to listen to influences that are actually guiding our whole life. They're influencing every area of our lives. So today I wanted to share this, and I wanted us to talk about this, because I bet everyone knows those areas. Everyone, we're very familiar with them. And the world has taught us, or whatever, this is all fine, especially Western culture. There are no spirits, there are no evil spirits and all that stuff. This can all be explained and so on and so forth. But yes, it can be explained spiritually, that we are fighting against spirits and that they are trying to get in, and they're trying to motivate us in a direction which is not the narrow path. It's the wide path, the many options in life, not the finite, narrow walk with Christ and His Word. Okay, let me stop here and open it up.
Thank you for taking your time to listen in. Feel free to add your thoughts in the comment section or join us in person if and when you can. May God bless you.